Right, thank you. Okay, we're all here, I think, now, and I think we all know each other. So this is a Scrutiny Communities panel on the 16th of November. Welcome everyone here. We'll start off with item 1. It's apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence? I'll come. Yeah, no, substitutes. Yeah, yeah, please.
I'm a substitute for Councillor Johnson.
Oh, of course. Okay. Simon?
I think Councillor Bannister has submitted his apologies. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Is he expected to be here, Simon?
I don't think so, no.
No, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Declaration of members' interests, please. We have any member interests? No? Thank you. And if we can move on then to the draft community scrutiny panel minutes of the 10th of October, our last meeting. Do we have any comments on that? Simon?
It's just a quick, I mean, it's not a massive thing, but under election of chairman, I think it says Councillor Nunn and Taylor were proposed as vice chairman. I think that was actually me who was proposed as vice chairman, just so we can get a record straight on that one. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you okay with that, Christine? Good, thank you. Any other matters on the minutes? No? If I could just say one thing, and Councillor Wellban did raise an issue about cabinet members attending the scrutiny, and I did want to pick up the minutes we've got there, which are in there, aren't they? About what we would do. It was I'll just read it out for the sake of members who weren't here. It was requested that in future the cabinet portfolio holder of the report presented attended the meeting if possible. We couldn't do it last time. If not, send a substitute member or provide a verbal briefing note. That's what we minuted. Actually, to tell you, we had this task and finish meeting the other night where the chief executive is taking this on board. And I think we're going to have some sort of chat group actually for scrutiny, which will help with that. But what I would like to do, because I just feel sometimes it might slow the meeting down on certain reports, but I think where we are at the moment, but I think the chief executive is going to give a better direction on this, is that if anyone does want the cabinet portfolio member to be here, let me know, and with a reason, and I will not be unreasonable. I will not withhold that request, for the sake of it. I will be very reasonable about it and balanced, if I could just say that. But I think we'll be getting some more guidance. Councillor Nunn. Well, I think it will be tied up a little bit in the constitutional review, and then it will come to full council. If we get a direction before that, then I'll obviously share it with all of it. Councillor Wellband.
Yeah, thanks for that. It is on the agenda of the meeting, so that's the reason I mentioned it, and I think it may have even been raised at Scrutiny Commission. I think
Okay.
Obviously the Scrutiny Commission isn't here, but that cabinet members are, should be expected at scrutiny meetings, which I think is the right thing to do, because I think it's the right thing for the executive to be scrutinised and to be at the meetings, and it's good to see Councillor Godwin here to do exactly that. So, I'd kind of reiterate my point from the other meeting that I think we should have a cabinet member at all meetings.
Okay. We get it settled down as soon as we can, and you may be pleased to know we have got the portfolio member here, Councillor Galton, tonight for this important report. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that can actually move us on to item 5, the local plan report. Yeah, are we okay with that? Well, what we're going to do, I said, just by way of an introduction, really. Oh, of course. Yeah, sorry. Okay, right, sorry. Can we, with the comments have been made by myself, by Councillor Wellborn, by Councillor Nunn, are we all okay with the minutes? Can I have a Show of hands for the minutes in favour. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we can now move on, I think. I don't think we haven't got a portfolio holder update here at the moment, but we can move straight to the main report. Okay, thank you. Okay. Right, now we've got the local plan LDS report before us. Councillor Galton will lead us through this, and I'm very pleased to have David and Tess here who have done a lot of work on this. I would just want to say one thing. I mean, I read it through for the second time this afternoon, and it really is a very, very thorough report. I can just think of one thing where I'll keep my mouth shut until the end, but generally it's really good to have this. It gives us loads of information, touches on all the issues that we're all involved in, and I think it's incredibly important. I just want to say really that any business, whether we are, and I've discussed this with David and Tess, any business that whether we're a private sector business or whether we're a local authority business, because that's what we are, it's absolutely vital we have a business plan. We call this a local plan, but I think it's so important and that we develop it all the time and keep it updated. And this report tells us a lot about that. So I won't say any more. I'll just hand over to Councillor Galton to take us through it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for asking me to come this evening, talk about this consultation. You've got a very comprehensive report in front of you, prepared by the officers. This work has been ongoing for some time. It's been led through the advisory panel that we have, which a number of members sit on and I chair, and a number of members who are not members of that panel also attend that fairly regularly, and I I encourage them to ask questions. So once we've dealt with the panel directly, we then open it out to all of the members. So I want it to be an inclusive process, and that work of that panel will continue well, for at least the next couple of years, I imagine. So we've now reached what I think is the first critical point in preparing a new local plan, and that is the Reg 18 consultation. This report will go on to the Cabinet and then to full council with a view to starting the consultation in January. Now, the first thing I want to say is, because there has been some questions raised, why are we doing this? Why are we doing a review or a new local plan at all at the moment? And I would remind members that there was in fact a cabinet decision in 21 to commence a review of the local plan, to start that work then. And indeed there is a link at the end of the report in the background section of the report for anyone who wants to revisit the reasons at that time. But in my view, there are three key reasons why we need to be doing this. First of all, next April 24, our local plan will be 5 years old. And yes, it will still carry on being absolutely valid in decision making, and members may want to ask the director more to explain. But once it's 5 years old, it's quite clear it starts to have that a little bit less weight in decision making. So those of you that will sit on planning or involved in planning decisions, it will start to impact on those. So that's the first reason, in my view, why we need to do this. The second reason is that the current local plan contains a trigger point. This hasn't really been picked up and a lot said about it, but again, it is referenced in this report for you. And that's not something that the council decided. The inspector was very, very keen to put it in, and we are required by that trigger point to commence a review on the basis of the City Council submitting its Reg 19, its draft local plan. David again will say more about that if members want to understand, but basically we are very close to that trigger point. And then of course the third reason, which is amply set out in the report, is the changes that are happening to the planning process. and the fact that now the Act got royal assent only a couple of weeks ago, and that is going to fundamentally change the way all local authorities prepare and submit their plans. And we've got two choices. We can either surrender control of when we choose to submit our plan, sit back and wait, or we can have a good go and crack on at doing it under the existing system. But that means that we need to submit our plan by June 25. And that is the intention. That's why we need to crack on with the first Reg 18 issues and options stage of it. So at 3.24, it sets out the timetable that we're hoping to follow, starting, as I've already said, with the issues and options consultation Reg 18. And that takes you through, as I've indicated, to submission. And indeed, it goes on to 2026, when we would hope to have had the examination in public and move to adoption. So that's all very clear what we're working to. In terms of the issues that this consultation will address, paragraph 3.9 goes into more detail about those, and you may want to ask questions to the officers, or if you've got any additional points you think that it ought to be seeking the public or other key stakeholders' views on. But obviously the critical one at the top of the list is housing, including affordable homes, specialist homes, accommodation types and so forth, jobs, protection of green spaces, design, climate change, flood risk, water supply and waste management, biodiversity, heritage, health communities, natural spaces, open spaces, sport and recreation, town centres and tourism. So those are the key issues that the plan, the consultation will address. So I won't go on anymore because it is a very comprehensive report. I think a lot of the background is set out in here. I hope I have explained to members why we're doing this, why we feel we need to do it now and not sit back and wait. And yeah, happy to take any questions, Chairman.
So well done.
Start. I've got a few questions, so I can either do them all in one or do them one at a time. It's up to you.
I think you can do them all in one if you want, Simon. That's okay.
Okay, all right. Turn.
How long will it take?
As long as it will take. All right. Okay.
Kind of.
So the timetable I have some concerns about, because what we're saying here is that the Reg 18 will conclude by February 2024, which then only leaves 16 months to submit the plan for examination by June 2025. And to give that some context, the last time this authority went through this process, it took HDC 33 months to do that. And other Leicestershire authorities have taken longer. So Charnwood's taken 60 months, Melton 46, and the City of Leicester 42. So I can't see at this moment in time how this authority can meet such a compressed timetable just so we can submit the local plan under the current arrangements. And there's a few other alarm bells that are ringing with me. One of them being that you yourself, Councillor Galton, at the recent public meeting admitted that it was a very tight deadline and that we might not make it. So what will happen in that scenario if the council fails to make this very, very tight timescale? 4.5 of the covering report. We don't have any idea about cost of the plan, local plan preparation. And it says that this information presented to Cabinet on the 27th of November, but we don't have this information tonight. So how much is it likely to cost? Because surely this will have a bearing on tonight's discussion. 7.5 of the covering report, the risk assessment identifies staffing as a risk. The mitigation outlined for that is extremely brief. the much compressed timetable will need significant staffing resources, I would assume. And how will the council ensure that this is properly resourced, and what arrangements are going to be put in place for that? And again, how much is that likely to cost? Because that is going to cost a lot of money, again, I would assume. The settlement hierarchy in the issues and options consultation, I'm concerned about how that's been arrived at. And as far as I'm aware, hasn't been agreed by any committee of this council. So how has this been determined? I'll come back to the consultation in a bit, but the final point I just wanted to make is, again, back to the government report 3.4. It suggests that Harborough will be in a later wave if we were to submit under the new Local Regeneration Act. However, the minister's letter that we got earlier this month basically says that they haven't yet decided on that. So kind of seeing that as fact at the moment, but the government is saying that that is still not decided on. So I just want a bit of clarification on that, and I'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you.
You're raising, and I'm sure the officers will want to come in, but you referenced what I said at the meeting. In fact, Councillor King said the same thing at the panel last night. So, yeah, well, what I actually said was that we were going to give it our best shot, absolutely put out everything we can into it, because the stakes are quite high. You referenced previously, if we fail to do this, and or we were to sit back and say, well, we'll just wait for the system to change, we run the risk, in my opinion, very significantly, of not having a 5-year supply. That was a very unpleasant situation that the council was in. We had speculative planning applications with very little control. Everyone was recommended for approval because they were assessed under the National Plan and Policy Framework rather than the council's own local policies. If the committee did throw it out, it was subsequently lost on appeal. And, you know, anyone that was around in those times, it was not nice, because we just absolutely lost the ability to control development in our district. So my motivation is, at all costs, even if it does have a big price tag, is to try and avoid that. To protect our communities, we need an up-to-date local plan. So what I said was we would give it our best shot. If some issue beyond our control, perhaps a statutory body or another organisation prevents us from doing that, yeah, well, we've got to do this work anyway. It won't be aborted. Whenever we submit, or whenever, if we do surrender our control and have to go under the new system, we will still need to do this work. We will need to ask these questions in the issues and options. We will need a local plan. Yes, it will probably have to be updated and changed slightly, but the heavy lifting work that is going on at the moment would still have to be done. So it wouldn't be lost, it wouldn't be aborted, but that doesn't mean that we're absolutely committed to giving it our best shot for the reasons that I've identified. The hierarchy issue, these are officers' proposals. Yes, you're quite right, it's not been agreed. That's why we're going out, we're going to go out to consultation. We're going to ask the communities, parishes, local residents, stakeholders, even developers, what they think about this. It's not casting tablets of stone. There will be a number of documents that will come out to underneath the consultation, underneath this document, to support that with evidence as to how these proposals have been reached. But this is a proposal on the hierarchy. It's not tablets of stone. It hasn't been agreed yet, and that's why we're going out to consultation. And then the cost thing. Well, yeah, you're just going to have to wait for this report, because I haven't seen it yet. Of what it's going to cost. I think I'm right in saying the current local plan cost us 2 million.
Yeah, the current local plan costs around 1.8 million.
1.1, getting to 2 million. Even if we just did what we do in the normal time with inflation, I mean, talking about inflation and what that's having impact on pieces of work we do, it's massive what the costs are going up piece of work that the council needs to commission. But as a small council, we don't have that expertise around many of these things. We're not any different from any of the other authorities in Leicestershire. We have to commission that work. We have to get specialists in to do it for us. Those costs are significantly rising anyway. Yes, it will cost more to do it more quickly because we'll need to staff up and have additional resources available to the council, but it's going to cost an awful lot of money to do a local plan anyway. But there will be a report, and that will be a decision for council to agree to put those resources in, because if we want to stick to this timetable, then we have to resource them to do it, but that is a separate decision for the council to make. I'll pass over to the officers if they want to pick up. And you could, I think, particularly around the timetabling, David, and how we're going to try and meet it.
Yeah, David, if I could just interject there for 1 minute, and that is on Monday that Tess and David and myself did have quite a discussion about this, and I did question about, the costs, and we will get a report, and the resources. Can we get the resources around us to actually do this within the time? And I'll let them speak in a moment, but we're pretty confident that we can do it. And when I read this report, there are so many issues in this report that I know in my ward and other things around the district that we need to get on with this. We really do need to get on with it because of the atmosphere we've got, the concern about all sorts of things, about traffic, about infrastructure, and goodness knows what. And there's so much in here. We need to get on with it for the sake of the residents of this district. But if I can hand over to David now to fill in a bit more detail, and Tess, I'm sure, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Portfolio Holder. To add to what Portfolio Holder and the Chairman have said on the timetable, it's a challenging timetable. There's no other way to describe it, Councillor Wellband. That is why we have in place the best possible governance and project management, that we're using all the available toolkits and expertise at our disposal. That's why we do need the additional resources and seeking to get some of the best resources that we can get, professional planning resources in to do that, and also to have companies to support, the expertise to support us as well from during the preparation of the plan. So people will have in the office, people that will be able to call upon when required. I think we can do it. I think we need to do it for the district. We don't want to be in the position we were in 2014 to 2019 when we didn't have a plan in place, and many colleagues will remember sitting on planning committee during that period, and we had some very long meetings and some very difficult planning applications coming to us, and we don't want to be in that position again. We can't completely guarantee, you never can, even if we gave ourselves 60 months to prepare the local plan. There are always third parties, always third circumstances outside of our control that could affect the progress. We rely on agencies, we rely on other bodies like the Environment Agency, Natural England, Highways Agency to work with us. That's why we're working with them. We're warming them up, as it were. We're talking to them to say we need your help, county council included, to say we need your help when we need it. If we don't make it, the work isn't wasted, because whether we're under this system or the new system or any other system, the evidence we need to plan for this district will be largely the same. We have the same issues whichever system we're under, whether it be transport, infrastructure, housing, environmental protection. So the evidence base will be protected and used. And if there's some light tweaking, we can do that. But we can simply put the new work into anything that we need to do beyond that. There's a report coming to Cabinet on the resources required. I said final details still being tweaked on that, and that will be available for the portfolio holder and the Cabinet to see just as soon as it is ready. Settlement hierarchy. Well, the portfolio holder's already said nothing in this document, as I said in other places. This document is an issues and options document. It has issues. It has options in it. So I encourage when the consultation opens, and the documentation will be published a significant amount of time before that. In fact, it already is for this meeting. I encourage people to look at it, think about it, and send us their views in. That is, of course, subject to Council and Cabinet approving it in the first place. But taking it that they do, if they do, then the public can have the full view of it and put their comments in on it. And if they don't agree with anything like the settlement hierarchy, I encourage as many people as possible to let us know, and we'll look at that and we'll get the best plan we possibly can for the district. Thank you, Chairman. Back to you.
Yes, Councillor Barban, yeah, you can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you both for that. I still have an issue about finances and how this is all much going to cost. And to be honest, that is surely a major piece of information that we should have now, because, you know, the cost between rushing this through in how many other months to get it in for June 2025 or taking a longer time under the new system might be very different, but we just don't have that information. So I think that's a big piece of info we're missing tonight, which is a shame. And I don't think, you know, we can really comment without that information. And the other thing I just wanted to pick up was the difference between what the report's saying about us being put in a later wave if we were to submit under the new Levelling and Regeneration Act, as opposed to what the Minister is saying is that nothing like that has been decided yet. So I just wondered what your comments were on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't answer that point. My feeling about that is that is very well rehearsed in the recent KC opinion, that particular issue. And there were two points to that. The officers very helpfully went back to the KC after the letters that were presented at the public meeting. And I would refer you to that further advice in there, which talks about the letter from the Minister of State dated 3rd of November, simply rehearses the content of the recent consultation paper on the proposals for implementation, etc. As the Minister has done, I've pointed out that in my advice that these remain proposals and the final decision on the arrangements will be a matter to be brought through regulations, secondary legislation, in other words. So what he is saying is that there are no guarantees that we would be able to be one of these pilot schemes. My view about that is pretty much the same as Neil O'Brien emphasised at the meeting, is that there are going to be lots of other councils in an even worse position than us, and they will all be jostling to be pilots and front runners and get picked. And look, it's clear that PINS, the planning inspectorate, can only cope, or only resourced, or going to be resourced to cope with a certain amount of number of councils going through, and that's why they're going to batch it into tranches and to go through the gate, as it were. And my view is we would very unlikely to be considered that urgent to go into a front runner. Now, no, we can't rule it out, but as we sit here, it is another risk to be considered. Do we want to wait for those regulations? The view is that they might not be out for another 12 months. And, you know, we could sit back. But if we do that, there's no way we would make the June 25. So it's like, go for it now and have the best possible shot we can, or don't. There's no kind of, well, let's wait for the regulations, let's wait and see if we could be a forerunner, a pilot. That'll be too late. We'd have no options. We'd have to go under the new system. I'd just say that, you know, talking around the other authorities, all the Leicestershire authorities are attempting to do this under the current arrangements. It's not just us that are attempting to do it. Laby, Open Wigston, Hinkley, Charnwood, they're in the best position. They've actually, their examination in public is ongoing. Even the city is going to attempt to do their plan before under the current system. So we're not the only one. We're not like going out on a limb and saying, well, you know, we're going to be unique in this process. All the Leicestershire councils recognise the advantage of getting their plan through under the current system as quickly as possible. And to that extent, we would be the odd one out if we didn't try and do this.
Thank you, Councillor Goldston. And can I just ask David to probably give a bit more information as well on this, and then if you want to come back, yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the new proposed system, and we've got a lot of detail to come out yet. There's a lot of secondary legislation and regulation and policy yet to emerge. So there's a lot of unknowns. So one advantage of the current system is it's a known system and everyone understands how it will work. What we do know about the new system is that the government, as my understanding, will largely take over the strategic project management of plan making, and they will decide based on evidence that they're going to say how they're going to base those decisions on tranching up, batching up councils into that new system. Our diligent history means that we probably won't be in the first front runners. So we've taken a view, and it is an estimate, and we've taken advice, and we think that the new system starts next year with some front runners. It could be 2026 or 2027 when we're admitted to the new system. So we might sit with from now to then before we could even prepare a local plan. And then we'd have 2 to 3 years, even if we could try and do it in this timetable, but there'd certainly be a period of time whilst we prepared it. So it may be 2029, 2030 before we had a local plan in place to protect the district, which means we could have another 2014 to 19 period almost exactly without a local plan, 2024 to 2029, 30 without a plan. So professionally, I couldn't recommend that course of action to the council. Members may have a different view. They may wish to allow national policy to govern our development control and development management. But I think we as an authority have always felt we should have a plan in place and have a plan-led system. So we manage our brilliant environment, our absolutely stellar district and villages, and we don't let developers put housing where they want to put it rather than where we think it should go in a sustainable development plan-led way. Because then we're exposed to unsustainable development and development that's pernicious potentially and not in the best interest of the district. So that's my professional view, but the council, obviously the cabinet and the council will need to reach their conclusion in the months ahead. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I think if we just let Tess have a word now, and I think Tess will try and address some of the resource issues you mentioned. Thank you, Tess.
Yeah, just to pick up on those questions, understandable questions about the costing and the resourcing, particularly the staff resourcing. And this is something that we have been giving quite a lot of thought to because we are facing a shortage of planners nationally, and a lot of authorities clearly are wanting to ensure that they can submit by a similar deadline. So we've been doing quite a lot of work behind the scenes and really reaching out and trying to understand where we are in terms of resourcing. And clearly, we've talked about the challenging nature of this deadline, and I think that is well appreciated and understood. In order to put ourselves in the best possible place, what we essentially are looking to do is to make sure that we have the best people, the best planners. So we're reaching out through a number of our professional networks to achieve that, and really pleased to see that the Harbour is somewhere where people are very interested in coming to work and help us out on that basis. So it was really, I just wanted to provide a little bit of reassurance on that basis that that is achievable. The other thing I just wondered if it would be helpful just to address was the issue of the waves and the transitional arrangements into the new planning system under the LURA. And it is absolutely the case that the government hasn't publicly explained exactly how that transitional arrangements will, I beg your pardon, how the new waves will operate. What we've got, which, as Portfolio had really explained, and the Ministerial's letter goes over and explains the consultation. So in July 2023, there was a consultation from the government which was around the implementation of the LERB, it was then, now LURA. So that talked about these waves and explained the system. It explained that there'll be these front runners. After that, there'll be 2025 authorities in each wave, and each wave will subsequently start a few months after the next. And as I understand it, the reason for managing it in that way, and as David Atkinson explained, this is a whole new way of managing local plan preparation. So currently and previously, each authority has managed their own timetable in response to their own monitoring and triggers, enabling them to start and progress their local plan at their own timescales. What this new system does is essentially to manage it in order to manage the workload of the planning inspectorate. Entirely understandably, the new system introduces a lot of additional stages and the gateway checks that the planning inspectorate will be heavily involved in. And clearly, that is a huge volume of additional work. So in order to manage that, each authority needs to be placed in these waves, and these waves move through this system. So it's a way of essentially managing workflow. That is new, and it is absolutely the case that the government has not publicly set out their final arrangements for that. What we've got is the draft arrangements which are set out in the consultation document, and which is an authority we have replied to. What this report and this proposal does is seeks to respond to those draft arrangements. We don't have the final arrangements nor an exact timetable for them. What we have had reiterated on a couple of occasions is the June 25 deadline. So that's been stated in the December 22 consultation and in the July 23 consultation. That deadline has been reiterated. So that would appear to be fairly clear, fairly set in stone. But because we don't have the details of the wave arrangements, we've got a sort of hard deadline and then clarity about the wave systems emerging. So essentially, rather than waiting, what we're trying to do is getting on the front foot, is really trying to put a plan in place in order to respond to that and make sure that we do have an up-to-date local plan, and that does create that challenging step. As I say, the resourcing is something that we are looking at, and are confident we are able to get those really significant staffing in place. Thank you.
Very much, Tess. Would you like to come back on that, Simon, Amanda? Okay. Yes, Councillor Taylor, sorry.
Just was following up a point that Councillor Wilburn made in terms of the financial report. I know that it's due to go to Cabinet on the 27th. So I just wanted some reassurance that that's definitely on track, and then we'll get that for the full council in December. Because that is a key issue, isn't it? And I've got one more question after that, but perhaps.
Thank you. Through you, Chairman. Yes, the report is being prepared and will be at Cabinet on the 27th of November and at Council on the 11th of December. Thank you, Chairman.
David. Councillor Sarfas.
Sorry, can I just do my second question? I just wanted a bit of detail about the stakeholders. Because obviously in the consultation document you've got that the stakeholders will be consulted, but I think a lot of residents have concern about infrastructure, doctors' appointments, education, and I suppose wanted it spelt out that they were stakeholders that were being included in the consultation.
It's a stakeholder list.
Is there?
Yeah, there is a list in there.
Is there? Sorry, I must have missed that.
And there's a list of issues as well. David, do you want to deal with that?
Yes, there is. We used to call them statutory consultees, but they're not exclusive. Everybody is a stakeholder that chooses to take part in this consultation, and indeed those who don't take part in the consultation, because every resident of the district is a stakeholder in the plan. But I think the question you're asking is stakeholders like National Highways, Environment Agency, Natural England, Historic England, the current local enterprise partnership, although they will be no longer with us after the 31st of March, the county council, other district and borough authorities across Leicester and Leicestershire, indeed those councils that border us as well. The world doesn't stop at the Leicestershire boundary, so those authorities as well. So we're very familiar with those, but the public, they'll be listed in there as what we used to call statutory consultees, but now they are the important stakeholders. But I'll stress again, everybody is important stakeholder in the preparation of our local plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Fast. Excuse me.
Just wanted to talk about warehousing, but keep it brief. When it talks on 6.21, 6.22, and 6.23 regarding growth warehousing for Magna Park, how do you write a balanced policy to do with warehousing that's just my question really, because Lutterworth's already got a lot of warehousing. I know that when you look at the criteria, I don't want to go into those jobs and all the other things. Those all come in, but for me, there's a concern of too much, but how do we balance that out?
This would be part of the consultation and moving this plan forward, but did you want to make a comment on that, David?
Thank you, Chairman. And Tess can add to any of these comments as well, of course, as the service manager for the area. A piece of evidence is being prepared across the Leicestershire and Leicester area on strategic distribution warehousing, which, to be honest, should put the councils and part of the councils of Leicester and Leicestershire in an even better position than they were last time, when we had some evidence, but not as much as we'll have this time. So though we'll need to distribute it as we need to distribute the housing, and that will need to take place, we'll have a stronger evidence base as we possibly can to guide that process. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, David. Any more comments? Councillor.
Obviously, regarding tight timescale, I just wonder, within the financial report that is going to Cabinet, are we going to include any potential additional costs if timetables aren't met, or is the financial report purely going to be making the assumption that we are going to achieve the deadline of getting the report submitted by June 25? And then, if I may, if I could ask something else. Throughout this paperwork, there seems to be an assumption being made that the statement of common ground will be agreed before this report, which I presume will come after the statement of common ground report at full council. What happens to this if the statement of common ground doesn't actually get approved at full council? What happens to this report after that then?
So I take that from as I understand it.
Yeah, Councillor.
Councillor King asked the question last council meeting about this sort of issue about the sequencing and so on. The answer is, and had been the chief executive, these reports, they're not dependent on one another. We need to do this anyway. Okay, we are the first stage at the Reg 18. We're not saying anywhere where housing will be built. We're looking at a strategy, broad questions and areas. The issue of the statements of common ground is not dependent on this, nor are the resources report. They are separate decisions that can be made. And yeah, I mean, that decision, as you know, is going back to the December council. It's not directly linked to this. It's not part of this, and it will be dealt with by members at the council meeting. So you could have a positive decision on one and not the other, but we'd still need to go ahead with the local plan.
Yes, yes, Councillor. Yeah.
So there may be a potential situation where some of the figures contained within this report would then have to be adjusted. Include figures taken into account any numbers of houses.
The numbers of houses.
You know, from this facility. Are they included within that? Or is it just purely?
I don't think there's any figures in the Reg 18.
No, but just these figures here.
Yeah, there's examples. Yeah, Tess, please. Yeah.
Explain this one. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So in the issues and options consultation, what we're obviously looking to consult on is a range of issues. The really significant one is the scale of housing growth and the location of housing growth. So what we've got within the report are 3 different scales of growth. And I can just find a reference for you. That would be so thank you. So in relation to housing, there are 3 different scales of growth identified. If it's helpful, I can take you through how those 3 are made up. Essentially, what they do is provide a range. And the reason for providing a range at this stage is because it's essentially a way of future-proofing the local plan. Because even under this challenging timescale, there is still a chunk of time that passes from doing your Regulation 18 to when you're then sitting in front of an inspector. Because of that passage of time, things can change and shift. One of the things that changes on an annual basis is your local housing need, which is the starting point for working out your housing requirement. And that shifts because it is a calculation driven by national policy, and it includes 2 different calculations. One is around your household projections and one is around your affordability index. And the affordability ratio index changes on an annual basis, so your local housing need changes on an annual basis. So essentially, what we're trying to avoid is being in a situation in 2 years' time, we're sat here and the inspector says, you thought your housing need in 2023 was this amount, you can now see it's this amount, your local plan doesn't deliver enough land to meet that need. So that there are 3 scales of housing need within the issues and options consultation. What the paper essentially seeks to do is to flush out those views. So there's a low, medium and high. So those 3, I'm happy to take you through. So the low figure, you got it, it is all explained in there. But basically, so that essentially is a way of mitigating the risk of the housing requirement changing.
So, okay, Councillor, are you okay with that now? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any more comments on the report at the moment? Councillor Welber.
Question, yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Would somebody able to just explain what exactly will happen in January and February next year as part of this consultation? What will that look like? How will that take place? How's the council going to be consulting? It would be helpful to have some.
Yeah, good question. Thank you very much. Who would like to? Okay, David? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. So you're asking about the launch of the January, February next year. So the council, so Cabinet on the 27th of November will consider this document with any comments that have been made tonight as well. Council on the 11th of December will then consider it and agree or not to publish the document for consultation. So there'll then be a 6-week consultation period starting in mid-January and ending in late February on this document, and we'll hopefully get a really fantastic response, and we'll be analysing those responses in the months following that, and then those will be collated and brought back before the authority back through Cabinet and Council towards the end of 2024 to allow us to formulate a Regulation 19 plan to, again, take through Cabinet and Council for them to approve that be published and consulted upon as a full draft plan, for what we used to call pre-submission plan, in the early part of 2025.
Yeah, sorry, can I just pick up? I think what you might also be asking is how physically, what will this look like?
Yes.
Okay, on the ground. Right, okay. Tess will give you the absolute detail. We were talking about this at the panel last night. And there will be there'll be a static display downstairs in the council offices, okay, with plans on and the document be available. There will be 3 drop-ins staffed by officers, which the public will be encouraged to come along with the stakeholders to have their say. It will largely be web-based, so you'll be encouraged to go on and complete the questions and give your views. But we've emphasised, again, Councillor King made this point at the panel, that there are obviously people that are not able to either access the internet or don't feel confident to do that. And so what we've asked officers to do, and they're technically going to make this happen, there will be a kind of dedicated line, phone number, and that will effectively ring round all the officers in the team, and someone will pick the phone up and deal with their query. So the people, in other words, the members of the public will be able to speak to a professional officer with their questions. We obviously will be sending this out to all parishes, parish councils and parish meetings, and encouraging them to have their say. And I've emphasised, we don't want to see this buried. Right, you've got to go through 10 clicks to get to it on the website. I've asked for it to be like coming soon on the front page of the website. So you go on there and there's a link from the front page of the website to take you to the document. So we've tried to accommodate these and make it accessible as possible. 1 or 2 members, we were going to advertise it in the Harbour Mail or something, and somebody said, well, yeah, that's fine, but what about the Swift Flash? And so we've arranged to do that. So we've tried to, as I say, make it as accessible and really highlight it. And in fact, as soon as we've got the decision to go ahead, although it won't be starting till after Christmas, we want to kind of front load all that publicity, awareness of it, so that people know it's going to happen. But if you want more detail on the nitty-gritty of it, Tess went through it all the other night.
Councillor Galton, if I could bring Tess in, she'll be able to fill in a bit more detail. Isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Galton. So essentially, that's the process. It will be a largely online consultation, but supported through various mechanisms for people who would like to talk to us about it. What we found in the past was the drop-in events that we've hosted have generally gone down really well. We don't attract huge numbers, but the people who do come out generally are very appreciative of the time just to go through it and explain it. So we won't be receiving consultation responses at the events, but it's more of a sort of drop in and talk to us so that we can help and explain it kind of an event. So we'll have a series of display boards and we'll take people through the key issues and options, explain the context, what is the local plan, why are we consulting, why is it that we're keen to hear from you, how can you best put your comments forward. So those events, as I say, are generally very well received. They go well, and the team will be there to provide that that context, that expertise, that experience. The existing team, we will be at those events rather than new staff, and the reason being is because the team generally, we are a very stable team. We all have worked within the authority for many years, so we're able to bring that local knowledge and context. As Councillor Gorton has explained, there are other methods of support. So we have a dedicated email address, dedicated telephone number, and what we're basically saying is any problems, just pick up the phone, give us a call, we will talk you through it. We can arrange to sit down with people, we can help them go through their online responses, etc., whatever support is needed. And we have a communication plan to ensure that the consultation is advertised as widely and broadly as possible, and we'll use conventional plus obviously all the modern social media, etc., means to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for that, very useful. 3 drop-in sessions, where they're going to be, I presume, Market Harbour, Lutterworth and somewhere else, I guess. And how long will they be? Are they day events, or are they during the week, weekends, that kind of thing? Because obviously you get a different sort of person that might drop in the weekend, they might do it in the week. So any information given that would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so we're looking at 3 exactly as you suggested: Market Harbour, Lutterworth, and then most likely Scraptoft. Certainly that corner of the district, simply because of the we're a really broad, geographically broad district, so just to ensure that people are obviously aren't having to drive long distances. So we're looking at, it will be sort of half to a 3/4 length day, and what we will do, details to be finalised, but what we'll do is we'll make sure that we span the working hours and non-working hours people, if you like. So, clearly we don't want to have it wholly within the working day. Neither do we want to have it wholly within the evening, which may include, for example, parents with young children coming out. So we will try and just span that, so we'll provide as much coverage as possible. Clearly, if people can't attend, as I say, we will obviously offer a more sort of one-to-one bespoke service. So if people do want to just phone up and just have a conversation, the kind of conversation they might have had at the drop-in event, but they weren't able to attend for all sorts of reasons, then they can do that, and we can.
As well, obviously, some of the larger villages are mentioned, so I would just ask if we could perhaps have one of these events in one of the larger villages in the district, such as Kibworth, for example, which you mentioned. I think would be very, very useful and good to do as part of the consultation.
Thank you. Good suggestion. Thank you very much.
I've got another question about stakeholders, and
Carry on.
given that this is my first meeting at Scrutiny, some of these questions might be obvious to everyone else, but
No, it's okay.
I can't find the list of the stakeholders in documents. But also I just want to check, when you have the consultation with the stakeholders, is that information then made public? I work in the NHS, so I'm aware of NHS resources, so I just wondered if that was information then was in the public realm that then we could use to inform our decisions.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Tess will help us on that. And if you know anything about the NHS in this, can you tell us about that as well?
It's just that's a lot of the concern.
Yeah, we need to consult with them. Yeah.
And sorry, and if they're not present in those consultations, is there, do we have remit to go back to them and sort of make sure that things don't proceed without the key stakeholders being present?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yes. So in terms of the list, it is set out in the statement of community involvement, which is available online, and I can direct sub-meeting to that. You were asking specifically about the NHS and and their involvement. And absolutely, it's a really key issue. And I think we're all hearing it at the moment, aren't we? Particularly locally, how difficult it is to get a GP appointment. So really conscious of that. So we obviously consult. We generally take advice and consult with the agency body through it's generally through an email address that is given. In the case of really significant consultees like the NHS, if we don't receive a response, what we'll do is follow it up and prompt and go back and ask. What I would also say is that it is very much an ongoing dialogue. So although we're hoping to launch this as a big consultation and get everyone's views, it's actually the start of a conversation. So particularly with really significant service providers like the NHS, it's really important that we engage and really on an ongoing basis, because clearly, the work of the local plan and the work of agencies providing services is really interlinked. And the NHS has their plans and the council have their plans, and we need to make sure that they're operating together successfully. Absolutely, really keen to get the NHS, and we'll engage as much as we possibly can.
Thank you, Tess.
Is that?
Yeah.
No, I was thinking about in terms of then how does that information get made either public or come into us in council, really, so that we've got that information.
I think we're going to rely on you a little bit with the NHS, yeah? Can we do that?
Is what happens to all those responses, and they will all be catalogued and absolutely available for people, not just for us as councillors to see what a consultee, Scraptoft Parish Council or anyone else said. We'll all be able to see that, and that then has to form the basis on which we move forward to the next stage. There's no point in doing it if we're then going to ignore it.
Thank you, Councillor Colton. David, did you want to get
Yeah, just a bit of detail, Councillor Taylor. What happens is the remarks that are made at this stage will be organised. Normally they're usually put into a table, so the remark will be summarised, analysed, and a response made to it, and whether there's a need to do something about it or not. And certainly at the next stage of plan preparation, that will be done. And often that information then is brought forward to councillors for them to consider. The officers will consider it first because they'll need to pull the plan together, and then they'll present that to councillors to say, this is how the information came back to us and this is how it's been used. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, David. Councillor Pinner. Oh, so and then Councillor, yeah.
This was really just picking up on something that Tess said in the initial rollout in January and February. You mentioned about existing staff taking on a lot of the roles within talking to the public and doing these outreach sessions. What impact will there be on the council in terms of other duties and other responsibilities that it undertakes? Because as has been mentioned, there is a very short time frame that we're trying to get this through. And if we're resourcing up, is there going to then be an impact on people currently in post? And what effect will that have on the other duties of the council?
Thank you. Yeah. Can I just go David to respond on that?
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, the detail of the financial arrangements is yet to come to Cabinet, but what I'm aware, there are no direct impacts on any other part of the council service delivery.
Thank you, David. Councillor Sarfas, I think.
Will there be any upgrading on sewage or water or floods in sense of reports and comments regarding the plan on those issues?
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, yes, they are important consultees. The water authorities, the Environment Agency, the lead local flood authority based at County Council. We would be looking to proactively engage with all of those people and for them to tell us when we work up towards preferred options what infrastructure they would expect to see provided to integrate new development with the existing networks. And then Chairman, the other key piece of equipment, if you like, that supports a local plan is an infrastructure delivery plan, which will sit alongside the plan and set out the infrastructure required, when, from whom, and how it was going to be paid for. And then we use developer contributions and government funding to try and bring forward that infrastructure in parallel with the development delivery trajectory. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, David. Councillor Nunn.
Yeah, just first of all, a bit I raised about the finance report was any additional costs which maybe occurred due to slippage on this delivery, was that going to be included in that? Tess, you mentioned about you've been speaking to people and people who may be interested in, but I take it there's been no definite appointments, or you can't 100% guarantee that you're going to get the staffage that you require to deliver on this programme. The other thing was when you mentioned the drop-ins, but first of all on consultation, 6 weeks is a terribly short length of time. I'm sure everybody appreciates that, you know, for such a major programme as this. I mean, I'm sure the previous one we did 12 weeks, if I'm right. But also, it just is a very short period of time for people to get their head around it. For parish councils only meet every 4 to 6 weeks, you know, obviously different things. Or drop-ins sessions. Just one of my suggestions about that, Tess, I understand what you're saying about bridging day between the working day and the non-working day running into the evenings. But my thought is that some of the demographics of people who shop in the mornings are more likely to be the older generation who are maybe less likely to be using technology and the internet and things like that. And we would really miss those sort of people if we do it, you know, early afternoon till early evening sort of thing. Just a thought. And the final thing was, what is the timescale for putting together a fully comprehensive risk assessment on the delivery of this? Because what we've got in here is not, I mean, it's quite light. When you look at it, you know, it doesn't give a very clear picture of the risks or the mitigation or what the impact of those risks would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Tess, are you okay with that too?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so if I just take them, one at a time, Councillor. Yes, so you're asking about additional costs due to delay. I think I understand from your question, you're looking at a scenario where we aim to meet June 25, we press ahead, we engage additional support, we progress with all of the evidence work and all of the work, and for whatever reason something slips and we end up looking like we're going to submit in July 25 or whatever. And is there going to be an additional cost? And I think the answer to that essentially depends on, as we were discussing earlier, it depends a little bit on the absolute details of those transitional arrangements. So what we are currently operating in is the draft transitional arrangements set out in the consultation document from the government. So under that arrangement, June 25 is an absolute deadline. So we have to work under that assumption at present because that's the information we have. It is possible that changes. It is, in my experience, rare for a change in the planning system to have an absolute deadline, and normally there was a little bit of flex to avoid that scenario. So we'll have to wait and see if that evolves. But under the current arrangements, if that's the case, what will happen is that the work that has been done so far will be bundled and then taken forward into the new system. So essentially the new planning system changes quite a lot of the kind of the process. So the introduction of these gateway checks by the planning inspectorate. But I think, as David said earlier, the actual content of the local plan does not change significantly. So we will still be preparing a similar local plan with exactly the same evidence requirements, with exactly the same background documents, in exactly the same process, with exactly the same issues. The difference is it'll be later in time. So what we will seek to do is essentially, as I say, bundle all the work that we've done. We won't be wasting it. We'll be taking it forward into the next system and using as much of it as possible. At this point in time, it's difficult to say exactly what the additional cost will be. One of the first things we'll need to do is to review the evidence base. Because evidence is obviously fairly time sensitive. Some is more time sensitive than others.
Just to be going into all that detail, my question was just, is any potential additional costs going to be included in that finance report? And I presume you're saying no.
It's not at this moment, just because it's not. We can't estimate it at this time. So moving on to staffing, yeah, absolutely, we cannot. So we put it, we're doing initial investigations at the moment. Clearly, we cannot put that in place until unless there is a decision. Is the statutory minimum, and at times we have extended that. Particularly, we've extended it from my recollection, where, for example, if we've had a consultation period that covers a public holiday, like Christmas, New Year, if we've got, for example, over the summer holidays, where people are going to be away, we tend to extend it. Those aren't the case in this case. But I think, as Councillor Gorton explained at the beginning, what we're really keen to do is, in order to be able to make rapid progress, is to make use of the time prior to the beginning of the consultation. So once, if the council decides to move forward and consult, what we can then do is start to give that pre-consultation notice to people and invite them to start to look at the document, which by that point will be online through our democratic processes. What we also do is write to parish councils and give them notice at the start of the consultation. So exactly at that point, completely appreciating they don't really have meetings and might not have a meeting in that 6 weeks. So we'll give them notice so that any additional meetings can be arranged, and we'll make sure that the document is online and people can start to be reviewing it in advance. So the consultation won't open until clearly it opens in January, but there is that opportunity to review the document and start developing responses. We'll certainly have a look at the morning shoppers issue and see if we can ensure that we have some events that cover that period as well. And the final point was around the risk assessment, and that's one that I will need to just take away and just seek some further advice on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tess. Any more questions?
Just one more quickly for you, Chair. Can I ask, Clara, you were going to feed into Cabinet all the discussion that's taken here tonight, because obviously the purpose of tonight is for us to actually task forward any comments and things that we have to Cabinet prior to making their decision. That's just how that's going to take place.
Okay, thank you. Just in response to that, I was just thinking, there's been good discussion tonight and lots of issues raised on a very good report. Now, there is this comes to the difficult bit now, doesn't it, really? But there is, we've got an opportunity here, very first opportunity, to feed additional information into the Cabinet for them to consider. Now, if we look on page 13 of the report, there's a sort of a bit of a hint there in item 5, isn't there? Page 13 of items that we want to maybe send on to the Cabinet, and they're not, they're not exclusive really. So we can have a bit of a discussion around that, I think, for a few minutes as well. Do you think that's the best way, Councillor Galton, to do that? We've got some.
Well, I think the Cabinet would appreciate, obviously there'll be minutes, but the Cabinet would appreciate all those views being formulated and picked up and fed back to them. Obviously, that's one of the advantages of me being here tonight, I will absolutely make sure that happens. But any information you want to send based on the issues and discussions which have come up tonight, yeah, absolutely, feed it in to the process, the cabinet decision.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We've got, it's a question I'd like to ask. I mean, there's things that have come out tonight of the cost of doing this, maybe how the costs are phased, the risks of going on this route, and the resources to do it. And obviously that links to the costs. There's a cabinet meeting, Councillor Galton, on the 27th of November, isn't there? Now, are we going to be in a position, we would perhaps might like to say to Cabinet, well, we are concerned about the costs, and are we like to have some information, this question to David and Tess as well, to go to your Cabinet on the 27th? Some indicative.
Through you, Chair, there'll be a full report.
Can we be?
There'll be a full report with the costs.
I think we all want to see that.
No doubt there'll be advice from the Section 151 officer. Surely you'll want to give that on this and where the money's coming from, how it's going to be funded. Your point about phasing, because it won't all be required in year one in the coming budget. But it's so significant that when I asked where that decision should be taken, it is a decision for full council because it is such a large sum of money. But I'll just emphasise back, there is no cheap way of doing a local plan. Yes, it's going to cost more to do it as quick as we can to this time scale, but bearing in mind the increasing costs of work and consultancies and everything associated with it. We even have to pay when we do get to the examination in public. We have to staff that. We have to provide the room facilities. We have to employ people to run that. The programme officer. It all falls to the council, and this will be a very expensive process whenever we do it. But yes, it will cost more by doing it in this way. But also we've asked the officers to identify, to look at all possible options for using existing funds and resources in the council. Leave no stone unturned and looking at possible sources of funding. But all that, including where it's coming from, I understand that will be in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Golden. I think, David, you wanted to add something in there?
I think Councillor Galton's covered pretty much all of it, Chairman. To be honest with you, there will be a full report on the plan resourcing brought to Cabinet on the 27th of November, and it will set out all the information that councillors in the room are seeking.
Thank you, David. Another question for me then. Would it be possible to have an indication of the sort of resources we're going to use? Are we going to use, is it going to impact on the present planning team? Are we going to use consultants for certain specialist aspects of it? Just to get a picture of what resources are going to go forward with this massive project.
Thank you, Chairman. So we have a very, very capable existing development local planning team, and they are integral to this process. What we're going to be seeking to do, if the council approves this, is to supplement those resources with equally capable personnel, some of which will sit with the team as members of the team, and some of which will be called upon from outside bodies like companies. There are a number of companies, you don't look very far, for private firms that provide planning services, strategic policy and planning making services. So on a rather more of a call-off kind of basis, when there was a peak in work, for example, or there was a particular area of specialism. And this is not unusual. This happens in every plan making process across the country. It will not affect our regulatory side, if I can put it that way. Development management, I think, has its own budget heads and costs and service manager and very, very capable and expert staff. So it will not affect them in any way. It will simply be supplementing and bolstering the strategic and local planning team whilst this work is undertaken. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, David. And then one other point then, and this is, I think this was picked up a little bit last night as well, and it's today, a sort of risk assessment, some sort of risk framework that, you know, this is our plan and these are the risks, you know, what go wrong and what we could do. And then if if we can't achieve the plan, what do we do then? What do we do then? It's actually a statement of all we've got to do. The different aspects, and I think one of them that was mentioned to me earlier, the fact we might plan all this and we might do it very well because we've got control of it, but we haven't got control of Environment Agency and water companies and all those sort of things. And I think it's just worth reflecting a little bit on risk assessments, the risks of what we're doing. It's a tremendous project and it's very important. And we ought to sort of give some view on it. I know Councillor Page was telling me all about that last night. It's a fair point.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Well, the plan, as was last time, and the core strategy before it, and colleagues were around that time, is always prepared within a fully project managed environment. So we'll have operational side of this, whereby the officers will manage the risks, the interdependencies, the interrelationships with other organisations, making sure that things happen in the right sequence and at the right time. If there are issues to deal with, they'll be dealt with on a focused manner. Our project management toolkits and IT that sits alongside this will enable us to pick up issues that are happening. If things are backing up or we're not getting the right responses from outside agencies and bodies, we'll get a big red flag will flash up on our systems, and our expert project managers will swing into action and ring a loud bell and tell us that we need to do something quickly so we don't run out of time or things get out of sequence. We can never control everything in the world we live in. We live in a discretionary common law planning system. I'm putting in place everything I can to talk to my colleagues at the County Council, for example, because they're really important, to notify them of the timetables. I'm seeking meetings at the highest level with directors there, for example, to tell them that we're doing this, and we appreciate their input when it's needed. We can't instruct, but we can seek to work positively. We have good working relationships with all of those stakeholders, good working relationships with the County Council. We have our colleagues at the political side as well, of course, and we can do our best to work with them effectively and proactively and make sure that they assist us and provide the necessary information on time and when it's required to feed into our project management process.
Okay, thank you very much, David. So what we need to do then is we need to send, we can get some information here on all of this that you just described to Cabinet on the 27th. You feel in terms of a report and the costs, it'll sit with the costs, won't it? Because it's the resources and the cost for those resources, and it's what information we can give to the Cabinet to assist them in their decision.
Chairman, the Cabinet will have all the information on the high-level work programme, so the local development scheme. It will have the resources required and the costs. It will have the process that we're going to take this Regulation 18 document through. The detailed project management and risk management of the project is more an operational issue, and that's why we pay some highly capable officers across the authority, some very capable officers across the authority to manage that process for us as the council. So the local plan process of making the local plan will be made aware of this as we move forward, and any project management issues that need to be brought to members' attention will be brought to members' attention. But the day-to-day governance and risk management is more of an operational issue sitting under me really, and the new chief executive and then under Tess as the service manager.
Thank you very much, David. I think Councillor Galton alluded to that the Cabinet will get the minutes. They will get the minutes of our meeting, will they, Christine? bring you into discussion.
Of course. So the minutes of this particular meeting, they won't be published until the next meeting of this panel. However, I'll speak with my manager and also the CMT team to ensure that the questions that you've asked and raised will be fed back to the cabinet.
Please do that, because we've had a very wide-ranging discussion on this report, and I think, you know, the cabinet needs to know, you know, before they take decisions. And
sure. I was just going to add to my previous comments there. If it would help the cabinet to have a high level dashboard kind of piece of information for their meeting, then I'm sure the officers can pull that together. It won't include a huge amount of detail, because that is an operation that those are matters that you pay your officers to manage, and to be accountable to you and the rest of the authority and the leader and the portfolio holder and the cabinet and the whole council. So we're accountable to you for making sure this works. But if cabinet would like to see a high level dashboard kind of risk assessment, I'm sure that can be pulled together and put in with a supplementary paper. We'll work with Democratic Services and the Chief Executive on how that might be achieved.
yes, I would like us to do that, please, David. I wouldn't like to think we've wasted a time here this evening, you see, so I would like the cabinet to know. Councillor Finham.
Yeah, sorry. Just in terms of the section on recommendations then to the cabinet, it mentions in question 2 is are the risks associated with a reprofiled local plan time clearly explained in the LDS, have any risks been overlooked? Can I just ask, our last plan was adopted in April 2019, and within that plan it mentioned that we should do a review of our plan within 12 months of any Leicester City issues. I can't remember what it exactly says, but we are now at the point where Leicester City have made a claim in January of this year. So is our local plan potentially at threat in January of next year if we haven't started this process?
Chairman, through you. Yes, I think the policy you're referring to, Councillor Finnan, is IMR1, our monitoring and review policy.
Yeah.
That policy says there's various criteria in that policy that is the way we need to monitor and manage the review of our local plan. And you're quite right. Leicester City Council published the Regulation 19, which is its pre-submission plan, on the 16th of January 2023. The years escape me. It's part of my age, I think. 2023. And so the plan says that a review of our plan should commence within, the total is 18 months. I won't go into the detail as to how that's calculated, but it's within 12 months of something happening 6 months. So 18 months is the figure we need to focus on. So we needed to have commenced a review of our local plan by July 2024. So the key other element of that equation is for us to be able to get a plan submitted to the inspectorate by June 2025. We can't wait any longer than now, otherwise we won't be able to do it. And the timetable will be so heroic it will be impossible. So we need to go now, as Councillor Galton has said, to run that through the stages to get to submission by June 2025. So it's tantamount to have triggered. It's not literally triggered till next July, but if we wait till then, the sand will have run out in the egg timer and we won't be able to do it anyway. So that's why it's so urgent we go now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, David. Any more comments? No? Okay. Right, I think we've got a lot of information to send to the Cabinet then, and I'm pleased for what we've done tonight. I see this actually as the beginning of a very exciting time. We've actually sort of taken the very first step. And we're going to be involved in the shape of this, the reshaping of this district, maybe right up to 2041. So There'll be a few others taking over then, I think, but it is a beginning of a very, very important process for the district. So I'm very grateful for the effort everyone's putting tonight. I'll just make a comment for you about, I do like the idea of having information in the reception here and anywhere else that we may need to do it in village halls. I mean, we've got plenty of space, haven't we, on the ground floor to do quite an impressive thing there. And just to make a point on that, I've actually been on the fringe of some land use planning in China. And one of the things I don't like about China, but some things I do like about China, and one is that you could walk into a village, this would be a village in China, but you could walk into a village and there, right in front of you with all the lights on, would be a model of what your village is going to look like in 10 years' time. And you can actually look, and you can actually look at your own house and see whether it's there or whether it's disappeared under a railway or whatever. But you really can, and it's a really good communication system. We don't do model making anymore, do we? I think we used to do in planning years ago, but we don't.
We did used to, Chairman. We intend to have moved away from that a bit.
No. Okay. Well, I do thank everyone's here tonight. Thank you very much for Councillor Galton from the Cabinet joining us and everyone else. Thank you very much. Finished. Thank you.